Welcome to another edition of Beat Diabetes, our books and quotes series, and we're going to continue to look at the book called Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It by Gary Taubes. And as I say each time I've talked about this book, you may think whether you're fat or not is not important to you, but there's such a link to diabetes in this whole process that Gary talks about, and he talks about insulin a lot. I wanted to share one quote about, and Gary makes the point very strongly in this book that exercise is not really the answer. It's not the answer to losing weight. And if you've ever tried to lose weight by exercise alone, you would know this, but it's also not the answer to beating diabetes. It can help in some areas, but it's not gonna be your solution to beating diabetes. But he talks about weight in this particular quote I wanted to share. He says, "We burn surprisingly few calories doing moderate exercise, and the effort can be easily undone." And he gives the example of a 250-pound man. He says, "Will probably burn 3 extra calories climbing 1 flight of stairs. He'll have to climb 20 flights of stairs to rid himself of the energy contained in 1 slice of bread." So you eat 1 slice of bread and you have to climb 20 flights of stairs to kind of undo all those calories. And he makes the point, wouldn't it be easier and simpler, just don't eat the bread, and then you don't have to climb the 20 flights of stairs. And, I kind of feel similar about the idea of, well, you got to go out and do exercise after you eat a high-carb meal, and that'll kind of bring down your blood sugar. There is some truth to that, although it's not the full solution. But the idea of, I'm going to enjoy a high-carb meal, then I'm going to go out and walk for a half an hour, it's like, why not eat a low-carb meal, and you don't have to walk for half an hour? Now, I do exercise. I use an elliptical trainer, so it's not that I'm against exercise, but the concept of eating high-carb meals and then going out and paying for your sins by exercising like crazy, or even in a gentler way, it seems kind of silly to me. But Gary Taubes talks so much about insulin in this book. And, as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about some of the other guys that I have read and watch on YouTube myself. And by the way, I do watch YouTube videos from low-carb guys. So I don't just depend on my own insights. But anyway, so many of these guys, like Dr. Jason Fung, like Dr. Eric Westman, and so many different ones, they all talk about hyperinsulinemia. They talk about the role of insulin. And it's kind of odd because sometimes I'll be reading some website related to diabetes, and they will say that type 2 diabetes is a condition where your pancreas doesn't make enough insulin to keep up with your eating. And they just assume, okay, you got type 2 diabetes, your pancreas isn't working very well. It's your pancreas's fault. And I think we need to start a club saying, don't blame your pancreas. Now, granted, for the type 1 diabetes, their whole problem is their pancreas. It doesn't work, period. But for most type 2 diabetics, your pancreas is not the problem. In fact, your pancreas is kind of a hero. It's working overtime. It's working extra hard. It's producing far more insulin than it should have to try to keep up with all the carbs you're eating and your insulin resistance that's keeping you from dealing with those carbs and that sugar in your bloodstream. So for many, and I think most people would that I study and respect, they will say for most type 2 diabetics, it's not that you got a bad pancreas or that you have no insulin. The problem is that you are eating way too many carbs and you've got too much insulin. And too much insulin is a problem. So anyway, here's another quote by Gary. He says, "It's the carbohydrates that drive up insulin levels. We know that carbohydrates make us fat. It's been demonstrated in numerous clinical trials that low carbohydrate, high fat diets improve each and every one of the metabolic and hormonal abnormalities of metabolic syndrome, the low HDL, the high triglycerides, the small dense LDL, the high blood pressure, and the insulin resistance and chronically elevated levels of insulin." So he's saying, we know that the problem is that carbohydrates make us fat and insulin resistant. When we go to low carb, we become less insulin resistant, and we tend to lose weight. And one of the things that surprised me, when I started the Beat Diabetes YouTube channel back in 2017, I didn't know too much. I knew that a low carbohydrate diet will bring your blood sugar in line and bring it under control. That much I knew. But there's a lot of things I didn't know. And one of the things I didn't realize was how simple it becomes to lose weight when you do the low carbohydrate diet, because weight was never much of an issue for me. I did get up to 190 plus for a while, and that was an issue at 5 feet 10 inches tall. But it was, by the time I was having all my blood sugar problems, I wasn't that big. But the thing that's amazed me in this Beat Diabetes channel and interviewing so many people and hearing from so many people, they say, I lost 30 pounds, I lost 50 pounds, I lost 80 pounds, I lost a couple of 100 pounds. And they weren't even trying. They simply were not trying to lose weight. They had one focus on their mind, and that was, I want to beat diabetes. I don't want blood sugar this high. I don't want to have my legs cut off. So their whole focus on diabetes, and then is like, oh yeah, by the way, I lost 70 pounds. And you might say, well, is it the low-carb diet? Is it the losing the weight? What's really fixing them? And I think the answer is yeah. It's all of that stuff. But you tend to lose weight. Now, if you're skinny, don't get too nervous, because once your body gets to the right level of weight, you're not going to continue to lose weight. And I'm a perfect example. I eat quite low-carb diet. And yet, I don't worry about being skinny. I'm fighting to keep under 170 pounds all the time. So it doesn't have to be that way. He goes on to say the best and perhaps only way to treat the condition, as with obesity, talking about diabetes and insulin resistance, the best and only way to treat the condition, as with obesity and overweight, is to avoid carbohydrate-rich foods, particularly the ones we digest easily, and sugars. And of course, sugar is a carbohydrate, but there are a lot of carbohydrates that we digest easily. They go into your stomach and boom, they become sugar. In almost any starch. Bread is that way. But one of the things that has fooled so many people is they've assumed, okay, yeah, that's true for white bread, but whole wheat bread, that's not a problem. No, whole wheat bread will go into your stomach, and granted, it won't be quite as quick, but it will very quickly turn into sugar. The same is true brown versus white rice. A lot of people think, okay, white rice is nasty, white rice is evil, white rice is the villain, but brown rice is whole and healthy and natural and good. But if you compare your blood sugar, and do a test on yourself, don't just take my word for it, and you eat a big helping of white rice, and then you test your blood sugar about an hour and 15 minutes later, and then the next day you eat brown rice and test yourself about an hour and 15 minutes later, about the same amount, now you're going to find there's not that much difference. And therefore, you got to do more than just turn your white rice into brown rice, turn your white bread into whole wheat bread. All right. One more quote, and we will wrap it up for today. He says, chronic diseases cluster together. Well, amen to that. We've certainly seen that. Obesity is associated with increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's. The same goes for diabetes. The evidence today suggests that these are all due to the insulin resistance and elevated levels of insulin known as hyperinsulinemia and blood sugar that accompany it. So it all hangs together. Even dementia, they're almost becoming convinced, many people are anyway, that it has to do with insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. And much cancer can be involved with these things. They all cluster together. So if you bring your blood sugar low and you are no longer producing prodigious amounts of insulin as a result of that, and so now you've got low blood sugar, or normal blood sugar, or close to normal blood sugar, and close to normal insulin levels, because that'll happen when you do it by diet. It won't happen if you just take pills. Or if you just do supplements, you may still have high insulin. But it will happen when you do it by diet. And suddenly, you are affecting everything for the good. You're affecting your condition of being obese. Your blood pressure is going down. You often will lose your irritable bowel syndrome. You'll stop the frozen shoulders. You'll be less likely to have heart attacks and strokes. I mean, so it all clusters together, and it all has to do with high blood sugar, and typically for the type 2 diabetic, high insulin levels. And so it's like the very best thing you can do for yourself is to simply stop eating so many carbohydrates and sugars. I mean, that's the heart of it all. The best thing you can do. Want to give yourself a present. Want to do yourself a favor. Stop eating so many carbs and sugars and cut it not just slightly down. Some people that just say, well, I won't put as much sugar on my cereal. Not enough. Sometimes when we try to just make limited efforts to reduce our carbs, but we're not serious about it, I say it's like trying to put out a forest fire with teaspoons of water. You're hurling the water at the forest fire. No, that's not going to work. You need planes going over those trees that are burning, dropping all that fire quenching chemicals on them. So no, you can't just do it slightly. You got to get really serious. The good news is there are so many options for low-carb meals and even keto desserts. And you can eat well, my friend. You can eat well by lowering the carbohydrates. God bless you.
If you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and you've just discovered this channel, let me recommend that you go to our Uploads page, which will give you access to every diabetic video we've posted since we began. As you work your way through all our videos, I believe you'll find the help you need. A link to our Uploads page is in the description.